So the next tool we are using is the scale tool. So to do that, I'm going to go ahead and select this profile that we created, and now I'm going to hit the scale tool and just click that once, and now it gives us some grip points where we can scale our object that I just selected. So a couple things that it does here: when I select in a diagonal area like this, as you can see, it says uniform scale about opposite point. So if I click here and drag my mouse, it will scale this up evenly along that a diagonal point that I selected there. So everything is going to be in proportion. So I can select on this other end, or I can select down here, and it's going to, because I have it connected there, it's kind of distorting things. So I really don't want to do that, and that one is also kind of distorting it a little bit. So another thing we can do is when we grab these, it's going to scale it and just kind of bring it in or out. But here it begins to distort the actual dimensions of our surface or our profile that we created there. So when we grab the middle, that's what it does there. Now let's select something different. Let's select our house that we have here. Let's select this entire object and let's hit scale. And it gives us just a couple other ways to scale this, but all of them do pretty much the same thing. So here, when we're going diagonal, they're all going to be a uniform scale. So I can select that and just drag my mouse to whatever distance that I want to do. And here I can select it here, and again, it'll scale it, but you have to take in consideration that it's distorting your dimensions here. So if you had a lot of detail or information in here, it will just condense that, scale it down to fit there. So it's not going to be in proportion when you do that. And the same thing with this grip point here. It's just going to kind of squash it down. And so let me select it again. Let's go to scale. And again, the same thing on this end too. So just a few different ways to scale objects in our model here. And while we're talking about this, I'm going to show you another way to adjust and move things around. So now that this thing is exploded, I'm going to use my select tool, and I'm going to click and drag my mouse and select everything on all these surfaces on this end here. So now that they're all selected, I'm going to use my move tool, and I'm going to pick a point. It doesn't really matter where I pick it. Let's say I pick it out here, and I'm going to drag my mouse, and there you can see that it's going to adjust that dimension there. It's going to move in and out, kind of like the push pull tool, but it's doing it. It's selecting everything. It's moving everything just connected to that area that I selected. Now this can get a little tricky when I grab something here and I use the move tool. Now you're going to see that it's going to get a little distorted when I move it. So and it will also move in different directions as well. Let's see if I grab this point here, and there I can move it just kind of a very awkward distance. Now I can kind of correct this a little bit if I kind of go along a axis. There you can see now it goes along that green axis, and if I get it vertical enough, it'll find that blue axis. There it goes, locked in there, and the red. So let me see if I can lock it in. There it is. So different ways. So that is just by selecting. I'm selecting an endpoint and dragging. Now I can do the same thing by selecting a end line. So there we can see where the whole line turns blue. I can grab that and drag, and this gets a little tricky. It's not really liking that too much, but there it goes along the red axis, and it's not letting me pull it on the blue axis for some reason, but does still gives us quite a bit of movability there. Okay, so that's just some different ways we can kind of scale and modify our lines and surfaces here. So let's move on to the next command.